Sure. Welcome to everyone here. And request for deferral of application for any request for withdrawal of an application. We have E5522 and E5622. Do you want to speak to those, Paul, please?
Yes, so we received a request to defer E5522 and E5622 from the applicant and their agent.
Okay,
Need a motion?
do we need a motion?
No, we can.
We'll do that later. We've got other stuff to defer. Adoption of the minutes. You've all received the minutes. Any questions? Moved by Rosemary, seconded by
Moved by Rosemary Kennedy, seconded by Jack Van Kasteren. Resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on July 27th, 2022 be adopted.
Late.
Hugh Galdred,
Yes.
Chairman Fleck,
yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
7-0, the motion's carried.
Next item is business arising out of the minutes. None. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof.
I have one, John Andrews.
Have one on
5-3.
3 applications, yes. So noted. John?
Mr. Chair, as well, this is the appropriate time. I'll probably be excusing myself on E61-22 as a conflict. Or potential conflict, let me phrase it that way.
Noted.
Noted. Correspondence or items for information? No, John?
Again, just a modest point, but I thought I'd mention it now. I will be attending the OCA conference next month, September, during the September conference, so I won't be here. But I'm going to do my level best to attend through Zoom if I can. I'll help to make sure that I can do that. And anyway, I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you. Next one is number 7, business arising from correspondence.
Thank you, Chair. So last night, we received a phone call from a lawyer, the authorized agent for applications E5718 and E5818. The application is due to lapse tomorrow. So the applicant has requested that the committee vote to consider amending the notice of decision for both of those applications, providing an extension of 1 year. Originally, the decision only provided 1 year as per the Planning Act at that time. However, subsequently, the Planning Act has been amended to allow for a 2-year for fulfillment of conditions, which is the standard that we provide on applications after that amendment to the Planning Act. So if the committee is agreeable, we would add those applications to the very end of our regular meeting.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Number 8 is new business. I don't believe we have
1 point.
Yes.
We look at these applications and we pass them and the conditions or everything are on them. Where do we stand as a committee if those who says those conditions have been met? And if we see one that isn't met, as committee members, are we in any position to bring that forward, I guess is what my question is.
How do you handle that, Brian? That's served Paul first.
So when the conditions are given by the committee, when we send the notice of decision to the applicants and their agents, they're given usually separated into 2 sections, conditions that were requested by the local municipality and then conditions that were requested by the county. For the conditions that were requested by the local municipality, we receive a letter from the municipality at the time when all of the conditions are fulfilled, just stating that they were fulfilled and if there's any additional information that needs to be provided for those conditions. For example, municipal addressing, if they're creating a new lot that doesn't have an address presently, they'll provide it at that time. And then for the conditions with the county, they're cleared internally through our office directly. So before the consent is stamped and finalized, we make sure that all of those conditions are fulfilled.
Okay, because I just know there's one in my area that the deadline was June 23rd, I believe. And I know the conditions we put on it, there's blatantly conditions that have not been met on that one. So I didn't know, do I have any authority as land division committee to follow that up? Or is that, like, we make conditions, the municipality is supposed to say that they've been met, but obviously they haven't been met. Driving by the place, you can tell that. So I'm wondering, we put the conditions on, so they should be followed up and met at some point.
And that would be up to the municipality to ensure that those conditions are fulfilled, if they're their conditions.
Brian, you like to?
Mr. Chair, through you, Duke, at any point, committee members can get a hold of us at any point and put forth your concerns, bring forth your concerns and ask any questions. We'd be happy to follow up. But as Paul's noted, nothing is formally and finally approved and deeded until we are satisfied, or rather, firstly, that the local municipality is satisfied that the conditions are met, and then secondly, that our conditions are fulfilled as well.
Because I know I did mention 2 or 3 months ago when the time was coming that I didn't think there was any way they were going to meet the timeline on this one, and they definitely haven't. So, but it's quite a, it was supposedly sold and it was never sold, and now it's supposedly sold again. So the guy that sold it, it was supposed to be, somebody bought it, was supposed to be, because he applied first and he couldn't do it because he wasn't a farmer. So then we got notice 2 days before the meeting that some company had bought it, and they were the ones doing the severance. That deal never went through, and the farm has been resold again, and it's never left the original guy's hands, who was not qualified to make a severance. So
Yeah, we're happy to review the specific application after the meeting with you if you'd like.
Yep.
Okay.
okay.
I'll ask that it be left till the end of the meeting and we'll review it at that time.
Yep.
Jack, you have one question?
That same thought in mind, I'm just curious, what's the procedure in place when all the conditions haven't been met and the timeline, either a year or now it's 2 years? Is there an abeyance for that timeline that somebody is alerted to the fact that all these conditions weren't met, so the severance is null and void? Is there a procedure in place for that, or,
Yeah.
I'd ask that this be left till the end of the meeting when we discuss what we're going to be discussing on this. Other one will be discussed at the same point.
Okay.
Do members agree with that?
Yeah.
I do, yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've got, if, I can talk about it at the end if you wish, but I'm not sure I'm in agreement with Paul about who has responsibility for the resolutions that we pass here.
Well, let's just leave all this till the end, okay? We'll discuss all this on one time. So that's all under new business, that's everything. So our first item is consent application E5322. Take notice that an application was made by J. McGuffin, 610 Princess Ave, London, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 10518 Ford Road, Township of Southwold. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel with a frontage of 50.1 meters, 164.37 feet, and a depth of 79.3 meters, 230.64 feet, and an area of 0.34 hectares, 0.84 acres to create a new residential lot. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 98 meters, 321.52 feet, and a depth of 79.3 meters, 260.17 feet, an area of 0.68 hectares, 1.68 acres, containing a single detached dwelling unit proposed to remain in residential use. I'll now ask, is there any applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce yourself to the committee.
I'm Jane Andrews, Alyssa Andrews, and Jamie Andrews. These two want to use one of the lots.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll now ask Paul Clark, the planner, to go through the procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is actually one of 4 affecting the same subject property. It's 10-518 Ford Road. The application is to create a total of 4 new lots. So there will be 5 total lots, including the retained lot that will be created all along the corner of Ford Road and Talbot Line. The County of Elgin official plan designates the property as within the Tier 2 settlement area. The Township of Southwold's local municipal official plan designates it as residential, and it is currently zoned settlement reserve in the Township of Southwold zoning bylaw. So the proposal is to create a total of 4 new residential lots from the existing property. As mentioned, it is within the settlement area, and the provincial policy statement is supportive of creating new residential lots within the settlement areas and directs that the focus of all development should be within the settlement areas. In respect of the County of Elgin official plan, it was within a 2-tier settlement area, and it has partial municipal services. Tier 2 settlement areas and Tier 1 settlement areas should be the focus of growth and development within the region. And in this particular case, the application indicates that the retained and severed lots have access to public water services, but each one requires its own private septic system. County of Elgin planning staff have reviewed the application against the general consent policies of the official plan and found no deficiencies. Township of Southwold staff have reviewed the application against their local official plan and zoning bylaw. The one deficiency they've noticed is the subject lands are currently zoned settlement reserve. Those lands are reserved for future development, but are ultimately intended to be rezoned once subdivision or consent is given for future development. So as a condition of consent, the Township of Southwold is proposing that the lands be rezoned from settlement reserve to residential first density to address that. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the County of Elgin official plan, Township of Southwold official plan, and with the potential of the approved zoning bylaw amendment to rezone to residential type 1 will meet the zoning bylaw for the Township of Southwold. The County of Elgin is recommending the following conditions. Number 1, a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number 2, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once completed be provided to the County of Elgin. Number 3, municipal addressing to be provided to the County of Elgin from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County. Number 4, that the owners acknowledge being advised and will advise prospective purchasers that the Ministry of Transportation MTO will require a 14-meter setback from the MTO property limit on the east side of lots 2, 3, and 4 for any structure, building, sanitary facilities, etc., and that wells require a 30-meter setback from the MTO property limit. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the Township of Southwold be included as conditions for consent. Number 1, that the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 2, that the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the Land Registry Office to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 3, that the applicant's solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcels once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. Number 4, that the applicant successfully applied to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment and to rezone the severed and retained parcels, having such rezoning of the zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act, satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 5, that the applicant have a drainage reapportionment completed pursuant to the Drainage Act to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 6, that the applicant shall complete an investigation into obtaining a legal drainage outlet using the Drainage Act by a qualified individual and complete any Drainage Act process that may be required to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality for the severed and retained parcels. Number 7, that the applicant have an engineered lot grading plan prepared for the severed and retained parcels to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 8, that the applicant have a septic assessment be completed by a qualified individual on the proposed severed and retained parcels to ensure that the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 9, that the applicant shall enter into a consent agreement with the municipality for the proposed 4 severed parcels and the 1 retained parcel, addressing all municipal interests and associated fees and charges, including and not limited to water, drainage, cash in lieu of parkland development charges, road permits, amongst other matters, to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 10, that the applicant is required to have the lot serviced by a water main and will require rural water main extension policy, all to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 11, that the driveway entrance permit and 911 sign be obtained. Number 12, that MTO clearance is obtained along with all other requirements, studies, intersection improvements, and/or permits. Number 13, that the applicant solicitor provide a request for clearance of conditions to the municipality demonstrating how all of the conditions of the consent have been fulfilled to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number 14, that prior to the approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. Number 15, that the conditions of applications E53, 54, 55, and 5622 be fulfilled in conjunction with one another. Number 16, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 2 years of the notice of decision, so that the County of Elgin is authorized to issue the consent certificate pursuant to Section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments from the committee members? John?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are we considering 55 and 56 in this or not?
No, 55 and 56 have
Have they not been deferred, or?
been deferred, yes.
So we're only considering the first 2?
Yes.
And a supplementary question to the applicants, if you don't mind me asking, the dimensions that I read and calculate your areas across all 4, but if we're just considering are different than the dimensions seem to give a different number than the actual area that is stated. It isn't a huge difference, but it's a clear difference. Are these nominal areas, or is it just because of the shape of the lots that the areas seem to be different
Yeah.
based on the calculation?
I would say it's
Area.
the lots,
What's that?
probably the shape of the lots.
Shape of the lots.
It's not unusual to see that, it's just that they're across all 4 of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from any members?
Make a motion, we approve it?
You're making a motion on E5322,
Yes.
moved by Rosemary, seconded by Doug Aldred. I'll ask for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by Rosemary Kennedy, seconded by Doug Aldred. Resolved that severance application E53 2022 be approved subject to conditions. Doug Aldred,
Yes.
John Zeldin,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy, Ian Fleck,
Yes?
John Andrews is
He's
left, perfect. 6-0, the motion passes.
Where's John?
Okay, we will now deal with E54-22. Take notice an application has been made by J. McGuffin, 610 Princess Ave, London, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 105184 Ford Road, Township of Southwold. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel with a frontage of 60.1 meters, 197.18 feet, and a depth of 63 meters, 206.70 feet, and an area of 0.3 hectares, 0.84 acres to create a new residential lot. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 98 meters, 321.52 feet, and a depth of 79.3 meters, 260.17 feet, and an area of 0.68 hectares, 1.68 acres, containing a single detached dwelling unit and proposed to remain in residential use. Applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourselves.
Again,
Again,
Jane Andrews.
and the Andrews, yes, thank you. I now ask Paul Clark to go through the procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as mentioned previously, this application is very similar to E5322.
Yes.
These applications all affect the same subject land. So essentially, the planning report between each one of them is effectively unchanged, as are the conditions. But just to go over everything again, the provincial policy statement does direct that new lot creation and residential development be directed towards settlement areas. This is a Tier 2 settlement area. The County of Elgin official plan is in support of an application like this. It conforms to all of the relevant official plan policies. In respect of the Township of South Wolds official plan, it is designated as a settlement area. And with respect of the zoning bylaw, the same issues appear as this last one. It is currently zone settlement reserve, but the municipality is proposing a condition to rezone it to residential type 1, and it will meet the lot provisions for that zone. The conditions provided to us by the municipality are the same for each of these applications, as are the conditions that the county is proposing 1 through 4, including the MTO condition requiring the 14-meter setback from the property limits, as was mentioned last time. If the committee wishes, I can read through the conditions again.
I'll agree that the conditions are all the same. We don't have to read them again.
Agreed.
Great, yes. Okay. Any members have any questions?
I'll move approval.
By Jack Van Kasteren,
Second.
seconded by Dennis O'Grady. I'll have the vote called.
Moved by Jack Van Kasteren, seconded by Dennis O'Grady. Resolved that severance application E54-2022 be approved with conditions. Hugh Galdred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
6-0, the motion's carried.
Okay, I'll read the decision rendered, and I'm going to read it for both E5322 and E5422. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent comes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request, includes all correspondence received. Thank you. So now we'll do,
So we're good to go?
yes, you're good to go. And if
Thank
you
you.
don't mind telling
Thank you.
John, he can come back in.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now I'd ask for a motion of deferral on E5522 and E5622.
So moved.
Second.
By Dennis, move, and second by Rosemary.
Resolved that severance applications E55-2022 and E56-2022 be deferred at the applicant's request until further notice. Hugh Galdred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
6-0, the motion's carried.
Mr. Chairman, just as probably a moot question, but because we're deferring them and because there is no opposition or correspondence related to the first two, we can do this both at the same time, right? Because we don't have to worry about the public or asking the public or notifying the public that they're deferred. So the order of approving them and allowing one motion to defer both applications is the right way to go, I guess, is my question.
Yes, we have moved the two that we dealt with, and these two we've just referred.
And
They're
there's been,
deferred.
there's been no public comment on any of these four.
It's being deferred because of the Ministry of.
Except for, the
Yeah, this-
except for the ministry, yes, okay, yeah, that's fine, okay.
Cover both.
We've got a few minutes before we do the next one.
Got to get back to work.
Okay. But now we'll be dealing with application E5722.
I'm getting the.
Take notice that an application has been made by Nikolai Ohms, 358 Elm Street, St. Thomas, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 142 Centennial Ave, St. Thomas. The applicant proposed to sever parcels with a frontage of 42.621 meters and 19.21 meters, 139.83 feet, and 63.03 feet, and a depth of 196.22 meters, total of 6.506 meters, 643.77 feet, and 21.35 feet, an area of 0.845 hectares, 0.012 hectares, 2.09 acres, and 0.03 acres, to be conveyed as an lot addition to an adjacent parcel. The applicant proposed to retain a lot with a frontage of 24.307 meters, 79.75 feet, and a depth of 78.869 meters, 258.76 feet, with an area of 0.186 hectares, 0.46 acres proposed to remain in residential use. Do any of applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning, committee members and staff. My name is Nicole Looms. I'm the applicant on this file. As mentioned, we are submitting this application to create three separate parts, one to be retained and two to be distributed. This is for a lot addition to lands locally known as 164 Centennial, owned by Doug Terry Limited. You'll notice that is shown as parcel B on the sketch. And then there's also part C that is to be addition to land municipally known as 140 Centennial, and that will be in addition to that lot.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Paul to give us to go through the procedure, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject lands affected by this application is 142 Centennial Avenue, St. Thomas. And as Nicole mentioned, this application concerns the severance and lot addition of two separate one smaller parcel, one larger. So on the black and white map in front of you, you'll see a smaller severed parcel. That's the portion that's being added to the adjacent property, 140 Centennial Avenue. And then the larger severed portion to the east is being added to the lot directly south on the black and white map. And that is the property that is almost 1 hectare in area. So the lands are designated Tier 1 settlement within the County of Elgin official plan. And the local municipal official plan, the retained is designated as residential and the severed is commercial industrial. And it is currently zoned residential first density R1 and open space 2. The provincial policy statement allows for lot adjustments and lot additions in any land use designation. And with regards of the County of Elgin official plan, it is within Tier 1 settlement area, and the applicant has identified on the application that it is for future development. Of course, Tier 1 settlement areas are the highest tier settlement areas within the county and should be the focus of growth and development throughout the county. And of course, lot additions and lot adjustments, technical severances are allowed in any land use designation, certainly Tier 1 settlement areas. With respect to the local municipality official plan, as mentioned, it is got 2 municipal official plan designations currently, residential and commercial industrial. And furthermore, in the Central Elgin official plan, it is also designated within the Central Elgin employment area. It is adjacent to the St. Thomas Industrial Park and is subject to site-specific policies. Specifically, that land in this area may be used for major industrial and commercial uses due to its proximity to both the airport and the St. Thomas employment area. With respect of the municipal zoning bylaw, the lands comply with the relevant policies, and the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the County of Elgin official plan, the municipality of Central Elgin official plan policies, and as such, we are recommending approval of this application subject to the following conditions from the county. Number one, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. And number two, the solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once completed, be provided to the County of Elgin. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Central Elgin be included as conditions for consent. Number one, that the severed lands parcel B be merged with 144 Centennial Avenue, that's the larger parcel. Number two, that severed lands parcel C be merged with 140 Centennial Avenue. Number three, that subsection 3 or 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act, as amended, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the subject lands. Number four, the solicitor for the applicant is to provide an undertaking whereby they inform the committee in writing that the subject lands are being conveyed to an abutting property owner, and thus a merger of title will take place, which merger shall include all interests held inclusive or mortgagees' interests. Number five, the municipality of Central Elgin be provided with a copy of the reference plan. And number six, a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments from any of the members of the committee?
Move the recommendation.
Moved by Dennis O'Grady, seconded by John Andrews. Call the question.
Resolved that severance application E57-2022 be approved subject to conditions. Doug Aldred?
Yes.
John Selden?
Yes.
John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Jackman Castron?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Ian Fleck?
Yes.
7-0, the motion's carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. Thank you, Nicole. E58-22 is, Paul can just explain that it's happened on this one. It'll be deferred.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we did receive notice from the applicants that the signs were posted on the subject land. However, as per the document provided by the applicants, the signs were posted on August 11th. The minimum 14 days required by the Planning Act would mean that they needed to be posted not later than August 10th. So for that reason, we are recommending, unfortunately, that they be deferred until the next meeting and the signs left in place.
I don't agree with that.
You need a motion for that. Moved by John,
Second.
moved by Dennis O'Grady.
Moved by John Selden, seconded by Dennis O'Grady. Resolved that severance application E58-2022 be deferred until such time as the notice requirements of the Planning Act have been met. Doug Aldred?
Yes.
John Selden?
Yes.
John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Jackman Castron?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Ian Fleck?
Yes,
7-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Our next item will be E1622 at 10 a.m. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. We'll
That was the Elmer Fair this year.
call the meeting to order. We're now dealing with application E1622. Take notice an application as made by Philip M. Robinson, 47932 College Line, Aylmer, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 47932 College Ave, Township of Malahide. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel of the frontage of 28.157 meters, 92.38 feet, and a depth of 67.908 meters, 222.80 feet, and an area of 1,858.76 meters squared, 0.46 acres, to create a new residential lot. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 72.637 meters, 238.31 feet, and a depth of 43.119 meters, 141.47 feet, and an area of 3,018.575 meters squared, 0.75 acres, proposed to remain in residential use. Do we have any applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce yourself to the committee.
My name is Phil Robinson, and I'm the applicant.
Yes.
I was approached by the people who lived to the north of me.
And I'll just ask you to first introduce yourself, and do you have somebody else with you?
And my name is Zach Remond with Hennessy and Hogan. I am the agent on the application.
Okay, and I'll now ask Paul Clark, the planner, to go through the procedures. And okay, thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is for the creation of a new residential lot. The County of Elgin official plan designates the property as a Tier 3 settlement area. It is designated as a hamlet in the local official plan, and it is currently zoned Hamlet Rural HR in the local municipality zoning bylaw. With respect of the provincial policy statement, section 1.1.3.1 directs that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development within municipalities and shall be based on densities and a mix of land uses that efficiently use land and resources and are appropriately sized for the existing infrastructure and public services available. As mentioned, in the County of Elgin official plan, it is designated as a Tier 3 settlement area. Tier 3 settlement areas are identified in the OP as those that are the smallest communities, predominantly residential in nature, and typically on private services for both well and septic. Staff have reviewed this application against the general criteria for consents in the official plan and have noted no inconsistencies with OP policies. Local Township of Malahide staff have reviewed the application against the official plan and the zoning bylaw and have found no deficiencies and have recommended approval. I will note, as you can see on the black and white map there is a outbuilding in between the severed and retained property lines. The applicant has identified on the application that he proposes to move that outbuilding south towards the retained land so that they won't be bisected by the future property lines. So in summary, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It complies with the County of Elgin's official plan, the Township of Southwold's official plan and zoning bylaw. As such, staff are recommending approval subject to the following conditions from the county. Number one, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number two, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once completed be provided to the County of Elgin. Number three, municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of the county. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the Township of Malahide be included as conditions for consent. Number one, that the applicant initiate and assume, if required, all engineering costs associated with the preparation of a revised assessment schedule in accordance with the Drainage Act, with a deposit to be paid in full to the township prior to the condition being fulfilled. If the deposit does not cover the costs of the revised assessment schedule, the applicant will be billed for any additional costs incurred. Number two, that the applicant initiate and assume, if required, all engineering and construction costs associated with the construction of a new municipal drain or the reallocation of a municipal drain to be commenced in accordance with the Drainage Act, all costs to be paid in full to the township prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. If a lot grading plan is required as a condition of severance, it should be done in conjunction with a new municipal drain or reallocation of municipal drain. Number 3, that all entrance permits are acquired from the appropriate road authority as per applicable entrance control policy. Number 4, that the applicant is required to retain the services of a professional designer and have an engineered lot grading and development plan and ditch grading plan prepared in accordance with good engineering practices that are suitable to the township prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. Number 5, that all outstanding work orders or bylaw enforcement issues be resolved to the satisfaction of the chief building official prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. Number 6, confirmation that private sewage system be confined entirely within the boundaries of the newly created parcel, that system being in conformity with all required setbacks from lot lines prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. Number 7, that the owner has the necessary review and lot assessment conducted to ensure that it is suitable for the installation of a sewage disposal system and payment of necessary fees per lot. Number 8, that the necessary deeds, transfers, and charges for certificates and or instruments necessary for registration be submitted in triplicate prior to certification, all of which are to be fully executed. Number 9, that all applicable property taxes, municipal fees, and charges be paid to the municipality prior to the stamping of the deeds. Number 10, that an electronic version of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. Number 11, that the applicant is responsible to apply and pay all fees to the township with respect to civic addressing numbers and signage for the severed and retained portions of the property prior to the condition being deemed fulfilled. And number 12, that the shed proposed to be relocated be done so to the satisfaction of the township's chief building official and in accordance with the requirements of the Township of Malahide zoning bylaw. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Any members of the committee? Yes, Jack?
Yes, thank you, Paul, for reading all that. As you were reading, before you got into all the conditions, the recommendation, there's an error that needs to be corrected. It says this application is consistent with PPS, County of Elgin, and the Township of Southwold. That should be Malahide.
Malahide.
We'll make that change. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for any of the members? John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just through you to Paul. The question about whether there's a previous severance from a property is always asked. It's part of the application. In this case, there was one in 2022 for a residential lot, which seems fine to me. When does that become problematic? Or is it ever problematic?
2022.
2022, this year?
There was a severance in 2022.
This year?
I think I,
Well, maybe I've written it down wrong, but there was I'm sorry, through the applicant, I beg your pardon, was there a severance last year from the,
No,
no?
there was one in 2012, and that's the lot to the north.
that's a typing error. Yes.
So I've made an error on the, I beg your pardon. Is that ever a problem that there's been a severance before on a residential lot?
I could respond, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Paul.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it could be a problem potentially if, for example, the new lot was undersized for the zoning bylaw. Furthermore, there are official plan policies that recommend that there not be more than 5 consent applications from a property without a plan of subdivision. So if you were proposing, or if an applicant was proposing more than 5 properties, we would recommend that that applicant go through the plan of subdivision process rather than the consent process. However, in this case, if the applicant has identified on his application, it is 2013 that he's severed, and there's been no other severances as far as staff are aware.
Okay, that's fabulous. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? John Andrews?
Moving.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Rosemary Kennedy.
By John Andrews, seconded by Rosemary Kennedy, resolved that severance application E16-2022 be approved subject to conditions. Stu Guldred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady.
Yep.
Jack Van Castren.
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy. Ian Fleck.
Yes.
7-0, the motion's carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen
Thank you.
and ladies.
Thank you.
Point of clarification, if I could, Mr. Chair. John
Almost was a typo.
asked the question, on the application, it does say under number 16, has there ever been a previous severance? Yes.
Crazy.
Who was the severance granted to? David Klassen. Date parcel created 2022. It's on the application.
I goof up.
Yeah,
I apologize.
just to clarify, that's where that question came from.
Because I went back.
All good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jackie?
And we are ready for the next application,
You guys are sharper than I am.
E 60.
Yeah,
60, yeah.
Not really.
well, better than mine.
The application E 60-22, Municipality of West Elgin. Take notice an application is made by Donald Ferguson, 750 Talbot Street, Unit 211, St. Thomas, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Sections 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 21707 Gray Line, Municipality of West Elgin. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel with a frontage of 10 meters, 32.80 feet, and a depth of 654 meters, 2,145.67 feet, an area of 6,578 meters squared, 1.63 acres, to be conveyed as a lot addition to the abutting parcel. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 12.192 meters, 40 feet, and a depth of 654 meters, 2,145.67 feet, and an area of 87,700 meters squared, 21.67 acres, containing a residential dwelling with no proposed changes to the existing use of the land. Do we have any applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning, it's Don Ferguson. I appear as the agent in this application, and I look forward to answering any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll now ask Paul Clark, the planner, to read the information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application is concerning a lot addition. The applicant is proposing to sever off a lot that is roughly 10 meters in frontage and extends from the road allowance of the property to the rear of the property and adjoin that with the abutting lot immediately to the west. The County of Elgin official plan designates it as an agricultural area. It is designated as lakeshore area in the local municipality official plan, and its current zoning is Lakeshore Residential Defined Area 1 Holding. With respect of the PPS, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, as section 2.3.4.1 of the PPS permits lot adjustments in prime agricultural area provided that no new lot is created. As this is a lot addition, the severed portion is being added to the adjacent property and there is no lot being created. With respect to the County of Elgin official plan, similar to the provincial policy statement, the County of Elgin official plan contains the same exception for lot additions within the prime agricultural area in section E 1.2.3.1. It allows for lot adjustments and technical severances regardless of land designation. The application has been reviewed against the West Elgin official plan and zoning bylaw, and the staff from West Elgin have noted a few deficiencies with this application. The first is that the subject land, as mentioned, is zoned Lakeshore Residential Defined Area 1 and is subject to a holding symbol. The proposed lot addition will also further reduce an already non-compliant lot frontage on the retained parcel. To address these concerns, the municipality of West Elgin's planning staff have proposed that a rezoning be undertaken as a condition of the severance that will rezone the severed portion to match the same zoning as the lot that is being added to, and it will also amend the zoning bylaw to address the deficient lot frontage requirements. Beyond that, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms with the County of Elgin official plan and the West Elgin official plan, and therefore staff are recommending approval of the severance subject to the following conditions from the county. Number one, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number two, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once completed, be provided to the County of Elgin. And additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of West Elgin be included as conditions for consent. Number one, that the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number two, that the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Number three, that the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. Number four, that the owners of the subject lands consisting of roll number 34340004015704 and 34340004015800 be consolidated under a single property identification number prior to certification. Number five, that the owners of the subject land secure a new civic address for the property to be positioned at the entrance of the property on gray line consistent with municipal protocol. Number six, that the severed parcel be conveyed to and consolidated with the abutting parcel to the west, rule number 34340004015600, municipally known as 21527 Gray Line, and that section 50, subsection 3 or 5 of the Planning Act apply to any subsequent application for consent. Number seven, that the function and location of the septic system on the retained lands be confirmed to the satisfaction of the municipality. Number eight, that a zoning amendment application be submitted and approved to address the reduced lot frontage of the retained parcel and rezone the severed lot addition to match the zoning of the receiving lot. Number nine, that the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed demonstrating that the severed parcel and receiving lot have been consolidated under a single PIN. Number 10, that prior to the final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. Number 11, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 2 years of the notice of decision, so that the County of Elgin is authorized to issue the certificate of consent pursuant to section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Comments from the members of the committee? Dennis?
Chairman, I've got several here, so if you bear with me a little bit. On the pre-information package, the severed parcel did not go all the way down to the lakeshore, but on the agenda package we have in front of us, it does go all the way down. So which is it? Does it go all the way down or does it stop?
I can answer that.
You go ahead, Paul.
Mr. Chair, it does extend as per the applicant's submitted plan to the lakeshore.
So the pre-information package, so I can ignore that. Okay. Second thing is, I don't understand this. Do we have any rationale why this is going on? I'm trying to get in my mind, what's the purpose of this severance? Is there a purpose for it, or is it just to expand the lots to the, that are on the west side? Is that the sole purpose, to expand the lots?
I can speak to that, Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead, Paul.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant did provide, as part of an application, a rationale for this lot addition, but I feel that perhaps Mr. Ferguson might want to speak directly to this, considering some of the background information.
Just before we get to that, I got a couple of other technical questions. We talk about consolidation under PIN. In your recommendation, we talk about consolidating under PIN. We also talk about consolidating parcels. So I understand what the PIN is from a planning perspective, but a PIN does not ensure that the parcels are merged, does it? When you put everything under one pin, you can still have two separate parcels. So can you not?
Through you, Mr. Chair, under one pin, you could have two different roll numbers.
Correct.
But you wouldn't have two different parcels.
So it'd be considered as one parcel. Then what's the purpose of having a separate pin if it's one parcel of land? What's the planning rationale for that? Anyway. And I guess my last question is, I'm trying to figure out what the Lower Thames is getting at here. But in general, it seems that they have put up a red flag that you can't build a road, you can't do anything, you can't cut down trees, you can't do anything without a permit from them. And that's fairly logical on the Lake Erie shoreline. I understand that purpose. But when I look at, again, your staff report, you say that the LTRCA has no concerns, and yet just above that, there are 2 pages of concerns. So I think part of the problem is the Lower Thames is being a little bit too general. They're saying, we have concerns. And so their concerns should be addressed in the recommendations. But I think what the Lower Thames should be saying is that before you do anything, you need a permit. And I think that our recommendation should be, you'd better get a permit from the Conservation Authority, because you're not allowed an automatic access, you're not allowed an automatic clearing, you're not allowed an automatic any landscaping of any way, shape, or form without our permission. That's what their regulations say. So I think that our conditions have to be altered to say that before anything goes on in the land, we will grant the severance, but before you do anything on that land, you need a permit from the Conservation Authority. There is no option, there is no possible. That is a legal requirement.
I can speak to that, Mr.
Speaker,
Chair.
go ahead, Paul.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the reason in the planning report that it says that Lower Thames has expressed no concern is when they express concern, they will say that they object to the approval of the severance. In this case, we've received nothing from Lower Thames saying that they object to the severance on its planning merits. They do express concerns over its slope and the fact that it is partially within the regulated area, which is standard wording that they'll use for any severance within the regulated area. With respect of the permits, my understanding from Lower Thames is that under the Conservation Authorities Act, permits are required for anything within the regulated area already, and the municipality, when those permits are applied for, it's on them actually to make sure that those permits are applied for, and they can't issue any permits until the Conservation Authority has issued a permit if they're within the regulated area. So this would be something that would be addressed through the municipality at a later time when and if any permits are applied for.
I understand that, and I guess having dealt with permits like this for a few years, one of the things that I was always careful about was that we had quite a few legal fights early on where the landowners didn't understand that once a severance was granted, they did not have carte blanche to go in and cut down trees or do whatever they want. They needed permission from the Conservation Authority. So I'm always trying to get ahead of the perception of the public, where when we say the Conservation Authority has no concerns, I would read that as a member of the public and say, great, they have no concerns. When in fact, that's not the case. They have huge concerns. And to simply say, well, that's not our responsibility to flag those types of development concerns, and good luck dealing with the bureaucracy, I'm just not a fan of that approach. I like to identify that there are concerns with doing any landscaping in that regulated area. For us to say there are no concerns of the Conservation Authority, we'd be better off saying, Conservation Authority has regulations, make sure you talk to them. At least we flagged our regulations, so you better talk to them. And my last point, and then I'll be quiet, is that the township is asking us for put in a condition regarding the septic system. And since that's got nothing to do with the severance, and that's strictly within the municipality's responsibility, I'm not sure why we need that condition in there. Because as we talked about just earlier, the pipelines, water lines, they're the responsibility of the municipality. This severance has got nothing to do with septic systems, so I don't think that should be in there at all.
Any comment from Brian or Paul? Any further comment?
Mr. Chair, the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, like all of our Conservation Authority partners and local municipal partners, are free to request any conditions if they wish. If Lower Thames requested conditions for this specific severance application, they would of course be provided in a similar way that the conditions from the local tier municipalities are provided. It would just be added. Additionally, conditions from Lower Thames are such and such, and we would recommend that be included.
Okay, any comment from the agent? Have you any comments, Don?
Sure. I think there was a request for a rationale for the background to this application for consent. And I'll try and briefly do that. To the west of the subject lands is the Hickory Grove campground. Yes. The nature of the campground is that there are a number of campsites that are abutting up to the easterly boundary of the campsite, which would be the westerly boundary of the subject lands that we're talking about. Over the course of 20 to 25 years, some of those sites have extended over the boundary line, and the allegation is that they are inappropriately located. And so as a result of that, the current owners commenced litigation against the campground. And so as a means to resolve the litigation, a resolution has been obtained whereby a portion of the lands that have now been identified as the severed lands or lands to be severed would then form the basis of the settlement, such that any potential offending encroachments would now be eliminated by having that occur. This has been an ongoing source of discontent by these lands and property owners, and this ultimately is the best manner and method of resolving this dispute that's gone on for a long time. So that's the rationale and that's the background for why we're doing what we're doing. And it has been also the subject matter of a number of complaints and issues with the municipality. And that's one of the reasons why the municipality is supporting this application, because it will bring to an end a source of discontent for a number of years for both parties. So that's the background.
Thank you, Don. Any more comments from any members? John?
Just a technical question. I'm sorry to come back to area again, but perhaps Paul, through you to Paul, the area that they give for the retained property, it doesn't match up with the dimensions given for the retained property. It states 87,000 plus square meters, and 12 times 654 comes out around 8,000.
Too many zeros, probably.
So I think there's just a decimal point or something missing there.
I can double check the measurements, but it might be due to the shape of the property in the rear.
But it's just
It's not a square lot. It does ebb and flow quite significantly.
I would agree with that, but it's a factor of 10 difference, which is quite large.
We'll ensure that correction is made.
Yeah, they'll,
Should be 8770 instead of 87, I think.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
ensure that correction.
Thanks.
any further questions?
I'll follow your lead, then I see something.
Don?
I'm good, thank you. Sure.
You're moving it, John Andrews? Seconded by Jack?
let them know before. We can
Further questions?
write about that.
If not, I call vote.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Jack and Castron, resolved that severance application E60 2022 be approved subject to conditions. Stu Goldred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yep.
John Andrews.
Yep.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yep.
Jack Van Castron.
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
Ian Fleck.
Yes.
7-0, the motion's carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, not related to the application, but to staff, when you look at your map, the legend is wrong. It's, you call it Gary line on the legend of the maps. And it should be gray line.
Gray line.
So
Yeah, it's gray
just-
line.
it's an easy mistake to make. It's probably in all the cartography of the county.
Noted.
Oh, that's Gary there, yeah. It should be gray, yeah,
It's gray line.
should be gray line.
It's-
Job for the cartographers to fix.
6122. We'll now do application E,
Excuse me,
61-22.
I'm reading, Mr. Chair.
Take notes, an application is made by Michael Sullivan, 110 James Street, St. Catharines, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 32 Robinson Street, 19 Arias Street. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel with a frontage of 17.51 meters, 57.45 feet, and a depth of 50.29 meters, 165 feet, and an area of 0.088 hectares, 0.22 acres. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 11.11 meters, 36.45 feet, and a depth of 50.29 meters, 165 feet, and an area of 0.056 hectares, 0.14 acres, proposed to remain in vacant land. To any of the applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Mackenzie Crum. I'm with Land Pro Planning Solutions, and I'm representing the applicant today.
Thank you. I'll now ask Paul Clark, our planner, to read the procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is for a severance that resulted as a accidental merge on title. So the applicants have provided a planning justification report, and they can speak to the specifics, I'm sure, later. But in summary, the properties were purchased as a result of tax sale, and they were put in identical ownership. So when two abutting properties are held under identical ownership, they merge on title, which is essentially what happened here. So this severance process is to essentially just reverse that process, give them the consent stamp, so that merge is undone, and restore those lots to their original form. In respect of the official plan, it is within the Tier 1 settlement area. The local municipality's official plan designates it as commercial, and it has two zoning designations right now: Central Business District C1 and Village Residential. In respect of the PPS, it is within a Tier 1 settlement area, and the PPS is supportive of lot creation within settlement areas. But again, I'll just reiterate that this is sort of a lot creation, but also really just restoring the properties to their original form. With respect of the County of Elgin official plan, lot creation and severances are permitted within the Tier 1 settlement areas. Tier 1 settlement areas are the highest tier settlement area within the county and are directed to be the focus of growth and development. We have reviewed the severance against the consent criteria within the official plan, and we found no deficiencies. In respect of the municipality of Bayham's official plan and zoning bylaw, the Bayham staff have reviewed this against their OP, and the OP allows for corrections of title and technical severances in any land use designation, provided that the severance does not result in the creation of a new lot. However, again, as the proposed lots were previously separated parcels that have merged on title, Bayham staff does not feel that this consent is creating a new lot, and it would instead be restoring the lots to their previous form. For that reason, it has been determined that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It complies with the county's official plan, Bayham's official plan policies and zoning bylaw. And as such, planning staff are recommending approval of this severance subject to the following conditions. Number one, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number two, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once completed be provided to the County of Elgin. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Bayham be included as conditions for consent. Number one, that the applicants provide written legal confirmation that the lots are allowed to be legally separated. Number two, a digital copy of the final survey be provided to the municipality. And number three, the planning report fee payable to the municipality. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments from any of the members of the committee?
I'll move.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Doug Aldred. No further comments. I'll call the vote.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Doug Aldred. Resolved that severance application E6122 be approved subject to conditions. Doug Aldred?
Yes.
John Selden? He's not here. John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Jack Van Castren?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy? Ian Fleck?
Yes, and John did declare a conflict on that one.
Yes, he did. And 6-0, the motion is carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. A copy of the comment package is also available upon request and includes all correspondence received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's John? We can go. Okay, the next application is E6222. Take notice that an application has been made by Dannett and Jan McKillop, 29094 Silver Clay Line, Dutton, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 29094 Silver Clay Line. The applicant proposes to sever a parcel with a frontage of 87.46 meters, 287 feet, and a depth of 55.52 meters, 182.15 feet, and an area of 0.48 hectares, 1.19 acres, for a residential dwelling that is surplus to the farming operation. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 599 meters, 1,965.22 feet, and a depth of 681.99 meters, 2237.5 feet, and an area of 42.56 hectares, 105.17 acres, proposed to remain in agricultural use. Applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning. It's Dan McKillop, and I have my wife Janet with me.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I'll ask Paul Clark to speak to the Planning Act on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is for a surplus farm dwelling. It is currently designated agricultural in the County of Elgin official plan. It is also designated agricultural in the local municipality's official plan and is currently zoned large lot agricultural A3. The provincial policy statement does not allow the creation of new lots in agricultural areas except in very specific circumstances, and surplus farm dwellings are one of those circumstances. Section 2.3.4 of the provincial policy statement permits lot creation in agricultural areas for surplus dwellings, provided that the new lot be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate sewage and water surfaces, and that the planning authority ensures that new residential dwellings are prohibited on any residential, on any remnant farmland parcel. In this case, the proposed severed lot is just over 1 acre, and then the rest of the retained lot will remain in agricultural production. According to the aerial photography that the county has from our GIS department, the proposed severance does not include any actively farmed land. As you can see there in the black and white, the severed lot is just at the very corner. With respect to the County of Elgin official plan, the official plan section E 1.2.3.4 of the OP sets out the specific policies that the Land Division Committee should take into consideration when considering lot creation in the agricultural area for surplus farm dwellings, and they are essentially the same as this policies provided by the provincial policy statement, being that the retained parcel be prohibited from future residential development, and that the severed parcel be limited in size to accommodate the existing house, outbuildings, and sewage and water systems. With respect to the local municipality official plan and zoning bylaw, staff have reviewed the official plan policies and found no deficiencies. The dwelling has been in existence for a minimum of 5 years. The municipality of Dunwich does propose, as a requested condition of the severance, that the severed and retained lots both be rezoned. The retained lot will be rezoned to special agricultural A2, which prohibits residential development. That will satisfy the provincial policy statement requirement in that respect. And then the severed residential parcel will be rezoned special rural residential RS, which permits non-farm residential uses and will reflect the smaller sized parcel. For those reasons, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, complies with the official plan for the county and the municipality, and post-zoning bylaw amendment will comply with the zoning for those properties. For that reason, county staff are recommending approval of this consent subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the county. Number 2, solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once completed be provided to the County of Elgin. Number 3, municipal addressing be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Dunwich be included as conditions for consent. Number 1, that a zoning bylaw amendment is in force and effect for the severed and retained parcels. Number 2, that septic system review for the severed parcels has been completed. Number 3, that municipal drain reapportionments have been completed. Number 4, that a mutual drainage assessment under Section 2 or 4 of the Drainage Act has been provided to provide a legal drainage outlet for the newly created residential lot. Number 5, that 2 hard copies and 1 digital copy of the registered survey have been provided to the municipality. Number 6, that taxes are to be paid in full. Number 7, that a 911 sign be established for the severed and retained parcels. Number 8, that all Dunwich planning application fees as set out in the fees bylaw be paid to the municipality. Number 9, that all barns capable of holding livestock or are in disrepair on both the retained and severed lands be removed or decommissioned to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Number 10, that the applicant confirms with the municipality that they are a bona fide farmer. And number 11, that the solicitor provides an undertaking that a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once the transaction has occurred, will be provided to the municipality. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments from the members of the committee? Hugh Aldred?
Yeah, reading over this, and not necessarily picking on the applicant, but there's a couple of things come up on here in regards to similar ones we've had here, that the actual person making the application is not the one with the farmland. And I realize you've given us an explanation of your process of how you're going to do that, which is a perfectly normal process for handing a farm down to the family. But as a committee, should we accept that, assuming all those things we're told are gonna happen, is enough criteria to pass this? Because if some of those, it's kind of hard to make decisions on assumption as far as I'm concerned. And then point number 10 of the conditions, it says the applicant confirms they're a bona fide farmer. Well, I'm thinking that's something municipality of Dunwich should have figured out or got confirmed long before we get to this point. And like I said, not pointing fingers at the applicant, these are just things that have come up in different ones lately, and I'm a little afraid if we go about this way, if we won't set a precedence that could get us in trouble down the road.
Comment from Brian or from Paul?
I can speak, Mr. Chair, to the concerns over the bona fide farmer. I don't specifically know why municipality of Dunwich has included that as a condition of consent. I will note that in the application, that as per the requirements of the committee, the applicant did provide their OFA number, and the proposed purchasers also provided a letter in which they went over that as well.
But neither party, as I understand, are farming this. It's being leased out to a third party. Is that right?
I could address that, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
No, Matthew Marcy, but Matthew has been farming the farm and taking full control of it. There should be in his letter a confirmation that he makes all the decisions regarding this farm and his other farm over him. So he's the farmer, and Janet and I have just given it up, but we still have our number.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Still not sure I get your point. I'm trying to wrap my mind. What's the precedent you're afraid we're doing here?
Well, basically, to have a severance, it says you have to be a farming operation. Well, the one making the application is not the farming operation, the son is. So that really makes it to the point that if we pass this, then somebody else can come down the road and say, well, I own land, but I'm not farming it. But I'm going to tell you I'm going to do all these things. But nothing tells us that the chain of events they explain to us are going to happen are actually going to happen.
So what in the recommendations would, I guess, give you comfort that everything, like what needs to be done? What would you change in the recommendations that would fix what you see as a problem?
Well, I'm wondering if the son shouldn't be the one that's actually owning the property before this application is made, and it's the son that's making the application.
Yes, okay.
Because they can come in and tell us any story they want, and we have to assume it's all going to happen. And if it doesn't, we've passed the severance that on an assumption.
I can speak that, Mr. Chair. So my understanding in talking with Mr. McKillop is that his son currently leases the property and actively farms both the property subject to this consent and another property elsewhere. Mr. McKillop is himself also a farmer, and he does have his farming number, which he did provide as part of this application, as does the purchaser of the farmland. They have also provided the same information and a letter just going over that fact that he's currently farming the land and leasing it, and now this is to sell that land to him so that he can continue to farm going forward in the future as he has been.
Yeah, and there was a little confusion. I thought that he was leasing it to somebody else, but he's leasing it from his father. I understood that from it.
Yeah, that is my understanding as well.
Any other questions, any members?
Could I speak to the one thing, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. McKillop.
You can call me Danny. Excuse me. Is we got the advice from the planner And our intention was to clean up the family business before we sell the farm to our other son. It would be very complicated to do it any other way. And I appreciate what you're saying, Dougal, that you know, talk is cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey, but I don't know how else we could have done it. So, but that's sure the intention.
Jack Van Castren?
I might add to this conversation by saying it boils down to, in my opinion, the application for consent. The name of the owner, Dan and Janet McKillop. That's correct. There is no agent or solicitor. The name of the applicant on this application for consent, in my opinion, should have been the son and daughter-in-law who are going to be purchasing this farm property. Because once that sale goes through, then this dwelling becomes surplus to their farming operation. So I think that's where it goes back to, the source, that the application had some pitfalls in it. And to further that line of thinking, if we scroll through to the surplus farm dwelling information form, which was completed, number 3, to whom is this dwelling surplus? You've checked the purchasing farmer. So that, as my understanding, is correct. So therefore, the original application for consent for a surplus farm dwelling should have been done by Matthew and Marcy McKillop, in my opinion. I think that would have cleared up a lot of concern. Thank you.
What's the wish of the committee members? Any more comments? I think we have to be, as has been stated by some of the members, we've got to be careful. So what is your wish?
So, yeah, ultimately, we agree with the concept that's going on. We agree, I think, with a few changes of names, we agree with what's going to be done. I don't think we object to the severance, do we? We're objecting more to the process, or saying the process is a bit off?
Well, we can pass this today. It doesn't matter with this one or anybody else. They can come in and tell us they're going to do this and this and this. Someday, whether it's tomorrow or 5 years from now, we're going to turn it over to my son and they're going to own the land. But say in the meantime, heaven forbid, the son dies or something. So what they explained to us is never going to happen. We sat here and passed an application based on the assumption that everything they explained to us was going to happen.
So is there a clause that could be inserted, or is this simply a deferral till we get the agent sorted out about who should be applying?
It's just something about the way this presented. Looks to me like it could cause us, open a door for similar situations. Somebody come in and tell us any story they want, and we assume it's going to be right. And I'm not doubting for a minute the story they're presenting is what's going to happen. I'm just concerned about, are we opening a door we don't want to open?
In my opinion, then, based on what I'm hearing, I would like to see a deferral while that's thought out, to make sure that we don't create this type of a precedent in the future. That I think Jack has maybe mentioned one solution there. It doesn't sound that complicated, but I think there's enough of a concern that maybe a deferral, changing a little bit about the application process. I'm not quite sure in my own mind what that would be, but somebody knows more about that than I do. And no cost, but just defer for a month. Get the wording done right so that it takes away that concern that some of us have as members of the committee. Doesn't stop the severance from going ahead, but it protects us in the future should something similar come up. I don't see that as a big issue if we defer it for a month just to get the paperwork sorted out.
What's the wish of the committee on this?
I'll move to defer it for a month and direct staff to work with the landowner to get the process to the proper wording, the application reworded or reapplied, or I'm not quite sure the proper term. I'd move that it be deferred. What else? Does the members have, any other member have anything to say on this?
We have a motion to move it. We don't have a seconder.
So you're just making a motion to defer it for a month.
To get the, clarify that the concern is with the process and the paperwork and the form that was filled out. And defer it for a month so that it's properly done. I mean, Jack mentioned one thing where he thought it should have been worded differently. Is it something that, you know, and you know, to be fair, I'm for deferring it, but to be fair, we're not a judicial body where our action today is a precedential action next month.
I'll second that, and maybe staff will come back to us with the answer that, but I'll second that as a motion and we'll.
We have a motion on the floor, moved by Dennis O'Grady, seconded by Doug Aldred. You have a comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just provide clarity. Both the owner and the applicant have provided evidence that they are bona fide farmers. In this case, the tenant happens to be a relative of the owner. So from staff's perspective, the application before you is satisfactory, but staff will take the committee's direction.
We have a motion on the floor.
Just further discussion.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, question to Brian then, and Paul. Based on the recommendations listed here that you read through, Paul, if a concern that Doug brought up, you know, it's all laid out that this is going to take place, there's going to be a transfer of ownership on the deed. Any one of these recommendations addressing, if it doesn't take place, if the deal falls through for whatever reason, if there's a, God forbid, death, whatever, is there something in here that makes the approval of this consent null and void then? Is there a safeguard in here that the condition isn't met, so therefore it's null and void? You know what I mean?
Yeah. For you, Mr. Chair, if any of the conditions are not met within the 2 years, it is lapsed.
So
I cannot stamp the
I'm
deed.
just asking what the condition is then. Is it that the solicitor must provide a copy of the registered deed? Is that the condition then? Yeah. Is that it?
That is a condition to provide a copy of the deed once the transaction's completed.
Yep.
So the consent would have been granted at that point already.
And all preceding conditions have to be fulfilled before that can even take place.
Okay, so that one is the safeguard.
That's a final step.
We have a motion on the floor.
Can I make one more comment here?
Yes.
Okay, the application is made in Dan's name, but he's not making the application as a farm consolidation, which according to Prince Policy Statement, it has to be as a farm consolidation to make an application. But if son who owns another farm owns the farm, then he has created a farm consolidation, which means he can make the application.
Goes back to what I said. The application needs to be.
So if you go to the Prevention Policy Statement, Dan cannot make the application because he's not doing it as a farm consolidation, but his son would be.
I'm going to call the vote on this. You agree to have, I'm calling the vote.
Sure. Just reread the motion.
Motion there that's been made.
For deferral?
Not sure.
Yes, moved by Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
seconded by Doug Aldred. Resolved that severance application E6222 be deferred to clarify the application.
You ready for the vote? Call the vote.
Doug Aldred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
No.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
6-1, the motion's carried.
Why do you not?
Because that's the thought. It's like part of the family.
I know, but if something happens to the son before the conditions can be met.
Okay, so that's,
Son dies.
after.
So doesn't that present a problem?
Okay, the next one is application E72-21.
Really? Blood?
Take notice that an application was made by Barbara Farms Incorporated, 33812 Fingal Line, Fingal, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 19, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 1155 Main Road, Municipality of Dutton Dunwich. The applicant proposed to sever a parcel with a frontage of 30 meters, 98.42 feet, and a depth of 152.378 meters, 499.93 feet, and an area of 0.68 hectares, 1.68 acres, for a residential dwelling that is surplus to the farming operation. The applicant is retaining a lot with a frontage of 635.5 meters, 2,085 feet, and a depth of 677.4 meters, 22.4 feet, and an area of 98.67 acres proposed to remain in agricultural use. Applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Herman Lansing.
Herman. I'll now ask Paul to proceed with the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this application is a previously approved severance application that was granted provisional consent last year. Mr. Lansing has reapplied to amend the application. In submitting his reference plan, it was identified that the actual property boundaries are slightly different above the 3% maximum deviation that's permitted as part of our application process. So 72 and 7121 are both related applications, essentially for the same subject land there on the corner of Coyne and Gaelic Line. 7221 is the severed land that is on the south side of the black and white map that you're looking at. The reason that this application is back before the committee is that in surveying the parcel, it was discovered that the septic tank was in a slightly different location than originally thought. So the property boundaries themselves have changed, but from a planning perspective, it is essentially the same application for a surplus farm dwelling severance as was originally presented to the committee, just with minor deviations in the lot area. We've received no additional comments from any of the local municipalities. Mr. Lansing was almost completing the severance and had fulfilled most of the conditions on this severance and had provided a registered reference plan that shows these property boundaries, which was used as the sketch for this application. So you'll notice that the recommendation is a little bit smaller than normal, as most of the conditions from the previous severance have already been met. So in this case, we are recommending that the application be approved, subject to the following conditions. Number one, a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number two, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once completed, be provided to the County of Elgin. And additionally, is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Dutton Dunwich be included as conditions for consent. Number one, the taxes are to be paid in full. Number two, that all Dutton Dunwich planning application fees set out in the fees bylaw be paid to the municipality. And number three, that the solicitor provides an undertaking that a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once the transaction has occurred, will be provided to the municipality. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments from any of the members?
Mr. Chairman, just again, process thing. So these conditions, so the conditions have already been fulfilled from the previous application. Are the numbers the same or are they different? They're different, right? Because if these are new conditions here that we're putting in, we can't just attach that to an old application unless we have a condition saying that these get attached to the old application.
Everything's been done.
So,
go ahead.
I mean, you talked about that they've already had some conditions fulfilled, and this is what's remaining. So do they need two separate, like 72-21, 70, whatever? Do they need two different numbers?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, the application numbers are unchanged because this is an amendment to an application, not a new application from the beginning. And as a result of that, since this is just an amendment of the application, and because Mr. Lansing has already been in communication with the municipality of Dutton Dunwich working on these conditions, It was almost to the point where we were ready to stamp the consent, except the reference plan was noted to be different. So we've had to come back to the committee and get approval for these new lot measurements. But the normal conditions that the municipality of Dunwich would provide on an application such as this have already been met. So we're essentially reissuing a new decision that will have just these few conditions regarding the taxes and such, just so that we can make sure that everything is up to par. But the normal conditions have already been fulfilled previously. So the municipality of Dunwich's council is satisfied that we don't need to reissue those same conditions and have Mr. Lansing go through the same process he's already been through.
Thank you.
Yes, Jack?
I'll move approval based on the new conditions and measurements.
Second.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Rosemary, application 7221.
Moved by Jack Van Castren, seconded by Rosemary Kennedy. Resolved that severance application E7221 be approved, subject to conditions. Doug Aldred?
Yes.
John Selden?
Yes.
John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yep.
Jack Van Castren?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Ian Fleck?
Yes.
7-0, the motion is carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There's a 20-day appeal period from the giving of notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy of by contacting landdivision@elgin.ca. We'll now proceed with application 71-21. Take notice an application is made by Barbara Farms Incorporated, 33812 Fingal Line, Fingal, Ontario, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended, to sever lands municipally known as 11714 Coyne Road, municipality of Dunwich. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 61.87 meters, 202.98 feet along Coyne Road by a depth of 102.15 meters, 335.14 feet, and an area of 0.63 hectares, 1.56 acres, containing 1 residence and 1 small drive shed, surplus to the needs of the purchasing farmer. The applicants are retaining 39.96 hectares, 98.74 acres, proposed to remain in agricultural use. I'll now ask Paul to read the procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is the other lot that was previously mentioned for Mr. Herman Lansing. So the conditions for this are exactly the same as the last one, and essentially the situation is the same. This is another surplus farm dwelling severance that we needed to amend the application to reflect some changes in the property lines. So with the committee's approval, I would suggest that we don't need to reread the conditions, as they are exactly the same as last time.
Yes. Any questions?
I'm moving.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Doug Aldred. I'll ask the vote be called.
Moved by John Andrews, seconded by Doug Aldred. Resolved that severance application E7121 be approved, subject to conditions. Doug Aldred?
Yes.
John Selden?
Yes.
John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Jack Van Castren?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Ian Fleck?
Yes.
7-0, the motion is carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's hope this is the last time.
Thank you. Have a good day, Herman.
I hope this is the last.
Okay, so the next one is.
He used to farmers on duty.
Yeah.
So that maybe that's.
Yeah, they're right on Bengal Road there.
Lansing?
Or no, that's Herman, but he originally was in with doing Lansing and Arts were in on. He lives in our east.
We have now application E88-21, 864 Centennial Road. Take notice that an application is made by Amy Dale, 108 Center Street, St. Thomas, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 8684 Centennial Road, Municipality of Central Elgin. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a width of 67.284 meters, 220.75 feet, and a depth of 240.226 meters, 788.14 feet, an area of 1.611 hectares, 3.98 acres, to be conveyed to the adjacent property to the south, 8662 Centennial Road. The applicants are retaining a parcel with an area of 1858.676 meters squared, hectares, or 0.46 acres, containing a dwelling proposed to remain in residential use. Do we have any applicants or agents or interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning. It's Helen Button. I'm here from Gunn & Associates on behalf of Amy Dale. I attended last month's meeting too, and this was deferred just because our client hadn't received signs and they hadn't been posted. This was a consent that was previously granted, and then once the area for road widening was calculated, the dimensions of the retained parcel were not going to be sufficient to meet the minimum required lot area. So based on consultation with planning staff, an amended plan was provided, and we now have the 1858.67 meters square area for the retained parcel.
Thank you very much. I'll now have Paul to proceed with the procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as Amy had mentioned, this is the second time recently that this application has been put in front of LDC. So it was deferred last time because the signs were not posted in time in accordance with the Planning Act. We have received confirmation that the signs this time were posted well in advance of the required timelines. The planning report itself is unchanged from the last time it was presented to the Land Division Committee, which included the changes in the lot dimensions. It is for a lot addition, and as far as the PPS and OP are concerned, as presented last time, there are no deficiencies, and staff are recommending approval of this application subject to the following conditions. Number one, that a digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Number two, a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once completed be provided to the County of Elgin. Number three, municipal addressing to be provided to Elgin County from the local municipality prior to final approval to the satisfaction of Elgin County. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the municipality of Central Elgin be included as conditions for consent. Number one, the severed land be merged in title with the abutting lot 8662 Centennial Road. Number two, that subsection 3 or 5 of section 50 of the Planning Act as amended shall apply to any subsequent conveyance or transaction involving the subject lands. Number three, the solicitor for the applicant is to provide an undertaking whereby they inform the committee in writing that the lands are being conveyed to an abutting property owner and thus a merger of title will take place, which merger shall include all interests held inclusive or mortgagees' interests. And number four, the municipality of Central Elgin be provided with a copy of the reference plan. And number five, a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense. Chair.
Any comments from the members?
I'll move it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, based on the information provided, I'll move approval of the severance with the conditions.
Second.
Moved by Jack Van Casteren, seconded by Dennis O'Grady. Any other comments? I'll call the vote.
Moved by Jack Van Kasteren, seconded by Dennis O'Grady. Resolved that severance application E8821 be approved, subject to conditions. Hugh Guldred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
7-0, the motion's carried.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 2 years to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Land Division at elgin.ca. Yes. And we have 2 requests, and I'll have Paul speak to them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in talking yesterday with the agent, Logan Burnett, for applications E5718 and E5818, these applications were approved by the Land Division Committee in 2021. And unfortunately, they are due to lapse tomorrow. So Mr. Burnett has requested committee amend the notice of decision to provide another year. Under the Planning Act, at the time of approval in 2021, the limit before the condition lapse was 1 year, but at the beginning of this year, the Planning Act was amended to provide 2 years instead of the previous 1 year. So Mr. Burnett has requested that we amend the decision to provide that extra year. He is in the midst of working with the municipality of Bayham on getting his conditions fulfilled, and they're just waiting, my understanding, for a transfer of a road allowance to go through. But obviously, given that it is going to lapse tomorrow, it is unlikely that the transfer would be complete by that time, and therefore I would not be able to stamp the consent before the lapse date. So essentially, we would just be voting just to amend the date on the notice of decision and nothing else. All of the conditions remaining the same, pending fulfillment through the municipality of Bayham.
Any questions?
I had a question. So we originally approved these back in 2018, is that correct?
2021.
2021.
So the 57-18, what happened to that application? They withdrew it?
They were deferred multiple times.
It was
I guess as a committee member, I don't want to make it a habit that people just say, oh, we add another year, oh, we'll ask for deferment, oh, no big deal. I want it to be a big deal if you ask for a deferment or if you ask for an extension. That's just my opinion. Otherwise, people just say, committee will just approve whatever we give them. I just don't like that. They should have had their act together. They should have had it done. I know stuff comes up, but
Municipality thing too.
Any other comment?
I would have liked to have had a lot more explanation as to why, when they started and why they didn't get it done. But that's just me.
Still locked in. No, I approve it. Make a motion to approve it.
Moved by Rosemary. Is there a seconder? Second by John Andrews. Call the vote.
Moved by Rosemary Kennedy, seconded by John Andrews. Resolved that the notice of decision for severance applications E5718 and E5818 be amended by changing the lapse date to August 25, 2023. Hugh Guldred?
No.
John Selden?
Yes.
John Andrews?
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Ian Fleck?
Yes.
6-1, the motion's carried.
I should make the argument, and I.
Setting you up.
Okay.
I know.
Now I need adjournment. And it will
So moved.
moved by Rosemary, seconded by Jack. Call the vote.
Moved by Rosemary Kennedy, seconded by Jack Van Kasteren. Resolved that the committee adjourn at 11:19 a.m.
Really nice speaking.
to meet again on September 28, 2022 at 9:00 a.m. Doug Aldred,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy, Ian Fleck,
Yes.
7-0, the motion is carried.
Now we have one